hello, and welcome to the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How is everyone doing? Hopefully well. I am, of course, your host, Mark Nez, and I'm here to talk about some video games. There's not much news to talk about. I recorded this episode originally a few days ago. I'm now recording it right in the early mornings, hours, whatnot of Friday, the day of this episode's release. But I had previously recorded it, I think Tuesday evening, and only got around to checking it Thursday afternoon, all times of the day, and found out that the audio was borked, and I immediately realized it was because I was fiddling with some things to maybe do some streaming not compilation videos, I guess you could call them that, but sort of a streaming highlights of the week or whatnot, moments of humor, of awe, of something or other, doing something along those lines. And I fiddled with some of the mic settings, and I ended up having two inputs on the scene you're looking at right now, the podcast recording scene, so that there was essentially not an echo, but two separate inputs for my audio, and that just made it sound not echoey exactly, but just off, kind of like it was recorded in a tunnel or something. It sounded bad, and I said to myself, I'll just record a little thing that says, hey, the audio of this episode, not so great, but I am too neurotic anal to let that be. So I deleted that stuff, so I couldn't even decide, okay, you know what, I don't have time to re-record this, so I'm just gonna put this out, and I'm gonna do that. Nope. I forced myself to be put in a situation where I have to record all this. And that's where we're at. But in the days since I originally recorded this, still no particular news has come out that has really grabbed me and said, hey, you gotta talk about this. So I'm just gonna get right into what I've been playing with my poofy, awful hair that I hate, and I don't know what I'm doing with it. My God, why can't my hair just go away? And by that I mean, why can't my hair just fall out? Why can't I just go bald? If I was balding, it'd be so simple. I wouldn't have a fucking choice. I'm not gonna be fucking some creepy weirdo with long hair on my sides and nothing on the top. I do not think that's a good look. Do I think this is a good look? No. I don't know what's a good look for me. I don't think anything's a good look for me. But you know what is maybe a good look for you? Star Overdrive, the first game of the episode. This is very much so a new Zelda-like, which is to say, it falls into that Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom space that many games have chased since Breath of the Wild originally released, where you are thrown into this open world and you have some tasks to complete, yes, but you're kind of free to go at it at your own pace and also explore the world and discover new things, with the occasional temple-like, dungeon-like area to explore and complete using the tools you have at hand, or maybe potentially gaining a new tool at the start of it that you are then obligated to use in order to complete the area. It has a pretty lengthy tutorial. Getting more to the game though, not to just say what it's about. Its highlight, it's kind of not really a claim to fame, because it's not like this is a game you've heard about probably, But its big selling point, I'd say, is its traversal method, its means of navigating the world. Because the world is basically a desert. It's a sandy area. And how you traverse it is with your trusty little hoverboard. And this allows you to essentially surf on the sands. It feels all right. It has some nice mechanics built in where it is very momentum based, so you can get to a point where you're not moving that fast at all. But the way you keep your momentum and keep your speed up is through going off of jumps, well, basically lips in the sand. And if you hold the jump button, much like ollieing in a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, you think of it that way, you hold the jump button and you let go of it and you jump. If you hold it and release it at the last second before reaching the lip of a sand hill, I guess, I don't know what else you'd call it, you'll get a nice little boost. And then when you are doing jumps, you can move the right analog stick in any direction. Well, I don't think diagonals work, but one of the cardinal directions, you will do a little trick. And the more tricks you do before reaching the ground, the bigger your boost will be. And that whole system works well. The game, either in the description or in the game itself, talks about how you can master the trick system. It's something you'll want to do, but really, there's no mastering there. At least in what I played, you're just flicking the right analog stick to do whatever tricks that you can before reaching the ground to get that boost. You're not really thinking about the tricks you're doing. You're just doing whatever tricks you can before hitting the ground, because if you wait too long, or if you do too many, you'll bail out and lose all your momentum, have to get back on your board and start all over again. But in addition to that, you have your traditional kind of swordy action adventure hack and slash combat, and I don't think you have a parry system, but you have a dodge roll. You will gain a few abilities early on and later in the game as well, but the first two you gain, and you get these through some, I think they're called mines in the game. I think that is their descriptor for it, but they're essentially like dungeons. One allows you to, it's a magnet and allows you to pick up certain objects and throw them around. You then use that to complete that area. And then the second one you get is a kind of homing missile. And I think they do a good job of introducing these new mechanics and giving you these little dungeon-like areas to experiment with them and figure out what you could use them for before completing them and being thrown back into the regular world. But the game itself is kind of dull. I don't even remember what the story was per se, but it didn't do much to grab me. And one of the most frustrating things about the opening of the game is that you are in this tutorial area for maybe close to 2 hours, and it is incessant with the tutorial pop-ups. It will not shut up and leave you alone. And it's not just that it has a lot of different mechanics and things it's teaching you, and it's giving you new stuff all the time. It is repeatedly telling you the same shit. So it will tell you before you reach the lip of a jump, hey, don't forget, if you do some tricks, or if you hold the jump and let it go here, you're going to get a nice boost. Or when you're in combat, hey, don't forget, if you dodge roll, you'll be able to get out of the way of this combat. Or if you do this, you'll be able to avoid this or obtain this, or so on and so forth. Hey, don't forget that if you use this device, you'll be able to upgrade your character, and blah, 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 blah. And it does this all the time. And when I say all the time, I mean seemingly every few minutes. And there's no way to turn it off when those pop-ups happen. Why is my nose just so... Why is it being such a bastard right now? When you're doing that, there's no way to turn it off. And when they pop up, they linger for maybe 3 seconds. They don't just pop up, give you a button that you can quickly close it out with. No, they linger. It's like they want to make sure you get this information. And the fact that they are doing it so frequently and doing it for the same things, repeating themselves, is incredibly frustrating. It makes for a terrible first impression. Once you get out of that opening area, it seems like it stopped. I've gotten a few of them, and I'm not sure if they're new, but I'm not sure if they're new tutorials or if they are repeated ones. But I'm, if nothing else, not getting them anywhere near the same frequency, which is good. But the game itself is just okay. Visually, I don't love the look of it, not because it's in this rather bland environment, which is just a desert with a few mechanical things all over the place, some sandworms, because if you're making a game in the deserty type space now, you gotta have them sandworms, them tremors. And with those, you engage in a kind of little boss-ish battle thing where you initially lasso onto them with your magnetic ability, and then you use your homing missile to weaken them, to lower their shield so that you can do a bit of damage to them, and rinse and repeat, few waves, defeat them. But I wasn't all that interested in the world. I followed the objectives for a few hours and then just kind of went off on my own and tried exploring the world, seeing if there were things to discover. I didn't find it that interesting of a world to be in or want to explore, because a lot of it is barren, a lot of it is empty, and while the traversal mechanic is kind of nice, it didn't make those downtimes more fun, because it wasn't at the level of a Tony Hawk or something. It wasn't like when I'm not adventuring, attacking enemies, doing my little hack and slash stuff, or trying to solve puzzles. It didn't feel like a Tony Hawk game. It wasn't to that level where I just like being like in Skate, for instance. And I'm, oh God, if that new Skate ends up being good, it'll be a surprise to everyone. But in the old Skate games, I just loved skating around, just being in those environments, skating around, just hanging out. And I didn't need to be going after something. That is not the case here in Star Overdrive. I do not think the surfing, skating, whatever you want to call it, mechanic feels good enough and is as in depth enough to be enjoyable on its own. So yeah, it's an okay game, but I don't think there's enough there to hold my attention and keep me wanting to see it through to the end. That is, again, those Star Overdrive. Ruffy and the Riverside is a very visually pleasant 3D platformer that is in a 3D space, but all the characters are, and even the 3D space has somewhat of a papercrafty pop-up book type of vibe, but all the characters, yourself included, are essentially 2D cutouts. So it has a bit of that 2D HD look to it, but not exactly. There have been a few games that have done this, some in VR, that I really like. And to that point, I think Ruffy and the Riverside looks fantastic. I love the look of it. It has a lot of charm in its animations. The writing seemed okay. You started off falling on this rock, and I don't even know what kind of creature you're supposed to be. But there's this mole who wants to get this gemstone or something out of the ground, and you leave with your other buddy because you use some kind of mechanic where you, I think, copy some kind of bind thing, and then you put it onto this waterfall and you climb back up it. None of this really matters because, at least at the time when I was playing this, and I play this on Xbox, that's important. It's important because I can't speak to it on any other platform. On Xbox, at the very least, there is incredible screen tearing. So I've only played this game for maybe a few minutes. And it is because the screen tearing is so bad, after a few minutes, started getting a headache. I couldn't stand it. It's funny when I look at other reviews and I see these scores, I think to myself, well, are they just playing that on a different platform and those platforms don't have screen tearing, or do they just ignore the screen tearing? Because for me, screen tearing is a death note. It is the Achilles heel for me with games. I can deal with inconsistent frame rate, poor frame rate drops. I can deal with a lot of performance hiccups. However, screen tearing for me is the line. And if you cross it, it's game over. I can't engage with your game in any way, shape, or form. I can maybe put up with localized screen tearing that is focused in one specific part of the screen and is not that egregious, but when it is all over the fucking screen and it's just incessant, no, I can't do it. So at least in its current state on Xbox, Roughing the Riverside to me is a fucking hard pass. Until it gets patched to fix the screen tearing in one way or another, I can't recommend it, and I can't play it myself. That is again Roughing the Riverside. Next we have Vessels of Decay. This is a pixel action adventure game, I guess, in a post-apocalyptic world. I don't know if it's supposed to be our world, but you are someone searching for, I guess, the power to bring life and everything back to the way it was. Because they open with a bit of story about Vessels of Decay and how they're known by many names throughout the times, and depending on, I guess, your culture and shit like that. And they are these beings who have the ability to bring things back to life, but they can also take things away. And the only way you get this power, you can't be given it. You have to take it from somebody who already has this power. And it opens up with you and this other character. And I believe you, in the little time I played it, I controlled both of them. But you're tracking a boar, and I don't know if the boar is supposed to be a vessel of decay. But in your tracking of this boar and exploring the world, you'll fight sludge monsters, these spiders, and I fought one little boss who televised their attacks in very clear. Every enemy does a pretty good job of televising their attacks, and you have ways of countering them, of parrying them, and then doing whatnot, finishers on them. The problem with the game for me that made me want to put it down after 15 minutes, but I gave it maybe about an hour and a half, is the combat. The combat feels incredibly slow and sluggish. I knew right from the start that I was never going to like the combat, and that stayed true through the rest of the time I put into the game. I just did not like the way the combat felt. It was so slow and sluggish again. And there's a lot of combat in it. There's some platforming as well, and some maybe a light puzzle lean, but not really. It is very much so a combat focused game, at least in one I played. You do have a chase sequence, a long chase sequence where the boar is chasing you from screen to screen. And so you're either running from left to right, avoiding obstacles, hoping the boar doesn't catch up to you, or there was a time where the boar kept coming at screen, and so you'd have to avoid it. You would see a red line show up, a red space show up that you would want to get out of the path of, or you would die. I don't know. It, again, lost me very early on with just the way the combat felt, and the story didn't really grab me. I think it looks all right from a visual standpoint. I think the pixel art is solid, but gameplay-wise, just did not like it at all. It's very unpleasant combat. Not the fluid combat I would like in a game like this. That is, again, Vessels of Decay. Next, we have Revenge of the Savage Planet, which I'm currently streaming, and I played a fair amount of it. And I have things I want to say, but also I want to save them for the eventual Attack the Backlog episode. It sucks that now I've played much more of it as opposed to when I originally recorded this episode, because it makes me feel like I'm being disgenuine by not talking too much about it. But I just played through earlier in the week Journey to the Savage Planet, and I was not into. The reason why I ended up playing Journey is because I played a little bit of Revenge, enjoyed it, and wanted to play the first game first. And so I did that. That took me only about 7 hours to complete. I've already put more than that in Revenge, and I still have it potentially 4 more hours or so. So it's a bit meatier of a game. If you've played Journey to the Savage Planet, you'll know exactly what to expect. In Revenge, only now it's in third person. The biggest difference between Journey and Revenge is the change in perspective. There are other things that are changed too. Some new mechanics are added, and you have more worlds to explore as opposed to just the one. They're not as large as the Soul Planet in Journey, but there's more diversity. So you have it's an icy planet mixed with a kind of lava-y planet. You have a deserty planet. Your opening original type of more foresty planet, and got 2 more that I just unlocked the 4th one. Haven't checked it out yet, so I don't know what its biome is going to be about. I don't know if there'll be an underwater planet. I just got the ability to go underwater, so there could be a mostly underwater planet that I engage with. But if you don't know what Journey or Revenge is, essentially, to really dumb it down, I would say, and this is only good if you've played or have this as a reference, it is very much so No Man's Sky if it was more focused and set on, well, in Journey's case, a singular planet, or in Revenge's, a handful of planets. So instead of having this vast open universe full of millions of planets that you can freely explore, and planets that are rather barren of stuff to find and become repetitive, you have a much more bespoke world or handful of worlds to explore, and a more focused narrative guiding you along the way. There's a bit of Metroidvania in there where you have to get this ability to open up these other areas, but also to continue the story. Some Zelda-y in the way it handles boss fights. But at the core of the game, what you're doing is exploring these worlds, scanning everything you can find, the fauna, flora, creatures, everything that are added to your database. And in some cases, in Revenge, one of the ways you unlock new abilities is through capturing creatures. So you find their weak points by scanning them. Then you lasso them up, take them back to transport them back to your home base, and then you research them, and they may give you the ability to do a ground pound or parry projectiles and stuff like that. But at its core, again, it very much so is about exploring these worlds, scanning things, and collecting resources that you use to upgrade your character and completing these objectives. I think it is a very, very satisfying gameplay loop. It's a great podcast type game, something you could turn your brain off, because there is a narrative again, but it's very light and you don't have to engage with it if you don't want to. You have a chatty droid that you can turn off. You can adjust the chattiness of it to very chatty, a little chatty, or completely silent. The game does warn you if you make it silent, you are going to miss out on some narrative aspects of the game. But that's not important. It's really just about being in these worlds and exploring them and going after collectibles. There are these orange bits of goo that you eat up to improve your health and stamina. Those are good to go for. But I just like being in the world. It's a fun world to be in, fun to explore. It's a good, chill time. I think there are good and bad qualities between the two different games, because they have they're very similar, but they have their differences. One of the things I think is very good about Revenge over Journey is the transition to third person, specifically in the sense that with that transition, they're able to give your character in particular a lot more character and personality. And that's obvious because you can see your character now, but what Revenge does a lot better than the first game is give both your character and the world itself a lot more personality through the animations. So when you are walking around, you have very exaggerated movements. You're like, oh, it's very cartoony in that way. And when you are walking through water, you're lifting your legs up very high so that you're only kind of in the water as little as possible. When you walk over a slippery substance, you'll exaggeratedly you'll be very exaggerated in your kind of attempts to keep your balance, and so on and so forth. It's very charming, and I love it all. The animations breathe a extra bit of life into the game that I find very, very delightful. Even you could have had this in the previous game in first person, and maybe there was, but I don't remember anything like this. Even when you or some animal, some plant in the world creates a bunch of the slippery substance on the ground, whether it just spits it out or something explodes, when the creatures in the world walk over that, they'll fall over as well. And there's something incredibly cute about seeing this essentially fucking raccoon head with a tail sticking out of its back and little tiny feet walking over a slippery substance and then just falling on its side. And then one of its friends comes, not to help, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna come over here too. And then it fucking slips and falls into the other one. It's kind of cute in that sense. And then some weirdo creature's gonna come and attack you, and all hell will break loose. You'll attack one creature, then all of them are like, hey, this thing seems hostile, let's all go after it. But I really like the game quite a bit, and I think it's worth checking out. If you enjoy being in worlds, and exploring them. It's a very the worlds are very lush and full of things to do, full of things to discover, full of things to scan. One of the things about it with the whole scanning is that when you get to a new area, you're just going to scan a whole bunch of things right off the bat to get them out of the way. And that's kind of tedious. But once you get that out of the way, there is fun, at least for me, in being in the world and coming across some kind of new plant or creature and saying, wait, don't think I've seen that before. And then you go into your scanner, and if you've not seen it before, it'll be orange. And when it's orange, I'm like, yeah, I knew it. And there's some kind of rewarding feeling from discovering something brand new after you've done that initial wave of mass scannings on a new planet or in a new area. So, yeah. Revenge of the Savage Planet. Dig it. And I'm not sure about it, but if the idea of the game sounds up your alley, and maybe if you prefer first person or third as well, Journey to the Savage Planet is on Game Pass. Maybe it's also on PlayStation Plus, but it is on Game Pass. I think it's only the Employee of the Month edition, though, which is the current gen version, the Xbox Series X and S / PS5 version. Because it did originally come out on Xbox One, and then they made an enhanced version essentially for current consoles. As again, the Revenge of the Savage Planet, or the first game, Journey to the Savage Planet. Next, we have Tetris Escape 2. This is a puzzle platformer where you play as boxes that can move up or down one space. And in the levels, you are tasked with collecting, I think, 3 stars or something along those lines, and then reaching the exit. When you collect the 3 stars, or whatever they are, then a cup, a kind of trophy, will pop up somewhere in the world, and you can go after that one too to complete a level fully. What I like about the game is that initially you're in a regular level 1 box, and it's just teaching you that, okay, you can move up and down one level, giving you an idea of how the game works. But it starts to introduce multiple boxes that you can control, and with these additional boxes, they have the ability to transform. Initially, they can just transform into a 4x4 square. But then you'll have boxes that can transform into multiple objects. And it's all very TETRA based. It could be a 4 square piece, one of the L shapes, a straight line, or the upside down T. What do we call that one? But with those, and then a little later on, they introduce the ability to rotate the pieces. But with those, you are either filling gaps so that the box that can't manipulate itself can get over a space, or you're building a step, a pair of steps for the non-manipulatable box to move up and reach the end space. What I like about it is that it's fairly easy to collect all of the base stars of a level to then reach the end. But with the cup, that doesn't show up until you've collected all of the other stars. You, of course, will know where it's going to appear once you do that the first time. But that initial time, you're not sure where it's going to show up. So you may realize that in order to collect the cup, you have to do the rest of the collecting in a certain order so that you will still leave one of the boxes that you can turn into a different shape open. Because once you pick a shape for those boxes, you've committed to them. You can't undo them and move them around again. You can undo every move in the game, in the level, which I always love that in these puzzle games. So you don't have to completely reset a level if you realize that you made a mistake here or there. You can undo each individual step. And for me, the fun of the game, specifically challenge-wise, was in figuring out the order of actions I needed to do in order to collect the cup in a level, because just beating the level was always easy. But getting the cup sometimes required a bit of extra thought, and I had fun with that. I also think the game does a fairly good job of increasing the challenge at a nice pace. So it gradually is introducing these new mechanics and introducing more and more blocks to use and work with in a singular level. So I like that. I think it's a pretty clever little puzzle platformer that I enjoyed and would gladly play some more of. That is, again, Tetris Escape 2. The other few games I played, Prehistoric Gal is a side-scrolling action platformer that is very much so a Metroidvania. It is very much so a Metroidvania light. It is structured like a Metroidvania where you're going around this world and you have your little map and all that. And there are certain areas you won't be able to get to right away. But it's not an interesting world to explore. You're a prehistoric gal, your prehistoric dude was taken from you and you're going after him. But it looks like many of those $5 side-scrolling platformers that you've either seen or played a bunch of. And it plays fine. Mechanically, the jump and all that, it all feels fine. It's just very, very basic and very, very simple. And there's no real challenge there. It is very generous with its saving. I think it might just save all the time, but at the very least, it saves each time you enter a new room. But I don't know. I played it for probably an hour and I had a fine time with it, but at the same time, I look at it and I think there are so many Metroidvanias out there. I don't know. There's nothing about this one that is special in any way that would keep me playing this over the multitude of others out there. It doesn't look great. It doesn't play great. The level design isn't that great. It even so far hasn't been giving me interesting mechanics and ways of engaging with the environment and opening. Thinking back on it now, I'm not even sure if there are new things or things that are closed off that I'll be able to. It felt very kind of mindless almost immediately. But again, it's not bad. It's just kind of fine. It's very, yeah, I don't know. It was all right. But unlike Tetris Escape 2, it didn't do anything remotely interesting. The most fun I had was when I came across these little dinosaurs and I met I think it was their mother. It was one of their parents who was like telling me, hey, you could use my kids to help you out. And I was like, I already fucking ran into multiple of them. I know that. I got on their back and they fucking either shot out a long singular flame or this spread shot. Fucking those things are cool. I love the dinosaurs. And that was the thing I liked the most, is finding a little dinosaur and then making it my buddy and going around killing enemies, collecting coins that I can use for permanent upgrades or food to bring my health back and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just fine. That is Prehistoric Gal. Next, we have Neon Apex Beyond the Limit. This is a futuristic sci-fi fast-paced racer akin to something like Wipeout, driving around the city in cars or motorcycles, and I really didn't like this game. It has a cel-shady anime aesthetic to it, and the real problem with it, though, is gameplay-wise, it feels bad. It is very much so a kind of bumper car type of feel, or has a bumper car feel to it. Think of bowling and having the bumpers up for that, where it is very easy to get into these strings of running into one of the walls, like running into the right wall and then bouncing off it and ricocheting into the left wall and just going back and forth. You're also very sensitive to the AI vehicles in races, especially when you're in a motorcycle. When I got to the motorcycle races, I would get tapped by one of the AI opponents and it would fling me 180 so that I was going the wrong direction. There's no on-screen indicator. It would be very hard to not realize that you were turned around and going in the wrong direction. But there's no on-screen indicator that says, hey, you're going the wrong direction. Turn around now. There's no... There may be in the options in the where it shows you the control scheme, if that exists, telling you, but there's no way that at least that the game told me to reset my vehicle so that I could get it back on the track and not have to turn around, because when you get tapped by another opponent, your car will do a 180, no problem. Super, just the sharpest 180 you've ever done. And then when you want to do a 180 and turn back around, your fucking motorcycle drives like a fucking snail. It just didn't feel good. If you're in an open space and by yourself, you can get into kind of an okay groove with drifting around corners and avoiding the walls, but it's very easy to get into a bumper car scenario or get turned around through the lightest tap or something along those lines. It just didn't feel good. It doesn't look good. There's a damage system so that if you take damage, you have to pay for it after a race. And the turbo, the boosting, you can gain it through drifting or purchasing it after races, in between races. None of it particularly felt good though. So only play that for maybe about 30 minutes, and that was more than enough to know didn't want to play any more of it. Then the last one is Missing Banban. This is part of the Garten of Banban series, except this is a 2D side-scrolling platformer. It's much more colorful than the Garten of Banban games because of the style of game it is, and it plays surprisingly well. Your jump is floaty. I don't love that, but I was surprised by how generally competent the game was. Played it for a bit, and the thing about it though is that I don't care about these characters, and so as surprisingly competent as it was, it still wasn't great. It's not such a good platformer that I would recommend it to people who don't have any affinity for the Banban series, but I think seeing these characters in this different fashion would probably be fun for you. But for me, when these characters are talking to each other and they know each other and it seems like I should know them well or at all, I'm just like, I don't know who this is. I don't know who that is. But it was all right. What it made me realize was, in thinking of the series that it comes from, the Garten of Banban series, that whole thing takes place in a kindergarten, and you're a father looking for your kid who's gone missing and all that. But the important thing here that's not really important is that I just realized now that the Garten in the title of all those games is for fucking kindergarten. And I only realize that now because I'm a fucking idiot. So yeah, that was my big revelation while playing Missing Banban. I found the missing piece, and the missing piece was my brain not realizing that all this time. But yeah, Missing Banban was all right. But again, just like the other games, it's really for people who are so deep into the series, into the franchise. And if you are, you already, I'm sure, are playing it, have played it. And if you're not, it's not like it's going to wow you with its surprising competence. That is, again, Missing Banban, and that'll do it for this year episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any other stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/pxs. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. I'm forgetting this every time now. Patreon.com/pxs. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord roles, and the random drop on the Patreon here or there, depending on your tier. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/pxs. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye.